Why not join our podcast family? Simply click subscribe on our Seriously with Sarah Beeny Instagram bio to become a member. For around £1 a week, you'll unlock exclusive bonus clips, behind the scenes content, and other fantastic perks. We'd love to have you on board.
You always trust us with your credit card, and I have never, ever once overstepped the mark.
I do remember once being on holiday, I'm not sure that I should admit this, and at the end of the holiday, they brought the bar bill, and the bar bill was so eye-wateringly enormous. But I looked down and it was all hot chocolates and, you know, waffles and all the things that the kids have got.
Mum didn't explain that when you said, please can I get a waffle, and then they asked for your room number, yeah, and you go, oh, that's so easy. All I have to do is say I'm 92, and then they give me a free waffle.
It's a horrible shock. Hello and welcome to Seriously with Sarah Beeny. Let's face it, having open and honest conversations with your family isn't always easy. But on this podcast, that's exactly what we're going to do. In this week's episode of Seriously, we're talking about bringing up boys. We ask if reality itself is a privilege. And we've got a listener question about the value of money. Hello, everyone. This is me, Sarah Beeny, on Seriously with Sarah Beeny.
Here with Charlie Swift.
And Billy.
And Graham.
So what's it like being in a house full of boys?
Well, do you know, I've always been around a lot of boys because obviously I had my dad and my brother. I do have a lovely stepsister who I really love, but I didn't get her until I was older and she'd kind of left home. So I'm quite familiar with boys. I find boys quite easy. I think I'm really lucky actually, because I think, you know, if you're lucky, you get the children that you can cope with. So I think
You literally said you only wanted boys. The reason I have 4 children is because I wanted to have some girls. And you just went, nah, let's have 6 boys. And I just went, oh, God. So tell me, do you think that the children have taught you anything that you didn't really know about boys?
No, not really, because I understood boy. I think my brain is a bit more...
Know it all?
Well, obs. I know everything. No, I think I understood boys more than girls before. So I think I'd have struggled more if I had a daughter, because that would have been more confusing. I don't know if I understood girls very well growing up myself, and groups of girls. I don't know how that works.
What was it about groups of girls that made you feel like you didn't fit in, though?
I think, if I'm honest, it's probably that I was quite uncool and because I didn't have a very strong, I didn't have anyone to tell me about makeup and shaving your legs and that sort of thing. And you know, I remember saying to my dad that I didn't like my legs, and he went, "You've got 2 of them and they work. What's wrong with them?" And that was very much how I was brought up, you know. And when I said I wanted to get my ears pierced, he went, "Oh, don't be ridiculous." You know, makeup, shampoo, anything like that was just kind of, you know, shampoo was good if you had sort of mud in your hair, but there was not a lot of beauty sessions that went on. You know, it wasn't kind of like, there wasn't a lot of preening.
If you to the same school, I don't reckon I'd be alive. I mean, I'm not sure Dad would have... I'm not sure Dad would have found you attractive back in the day.
No, not many people found me attractive. They found me a bit. I was always the one at the discos who was on the edge, and you know this is how discos work. When I was young, is that the boys and girls who went to a disco somewhere, and then slowly one by one the boys or the girls would pick each other off, and then they'd end up snogging in the middle of the floor. And then the ones that were left behind were the ones no one really wanted to snog. So I was always left at the end. It's like being picked for a team. I was really bad at sport as well. And, you know, they get the 2 team captains. They used to do that. They probably do it in a PC way now.
Though, didn't you? In later life. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So lovely.
You so blossomed in later life. You know, you came through. Also, it's a slightly weird demographic, this family, to talk about with boys, because this family has one alpha in it, and it is definitely you.
Stop.
That's not true.
5 beta males and 1 alpha.
I've got a question. What was the hardest thing about raising us?
I guess the hardest thing about raising boys I don't remember anything very hard. It was just rather lovely, actually.
I love the way you had no answer for that. So what was your question? What was the most difficult thing about bringing up boys?
Yeah.
Having a nice house.
Oh,
That
yeah,
was
that's
the most
true.
difficult thing. I remember, in fact, even the house that we just built, last lick of paint, we all moved in. Within 2 days, Laurie had got a crayon and was scratching the wall with a, with a crayon, and you're just going, what the?
That is true.
Can't we just have a
Destruction.
week of the house
Destruction
being
is how,
nice?
but I don't mind that because I like that lived-in look. So I'm less bothered. Dad gets very cross about that.
In the old house, we still have all of Rafi's paint where he did Halloween, and he convinced everyone that it was removable paint.
And so we have.
Stay Out, spelled AWT, because he's dyslexic, and it's like painted all along the walls.
Yeah, that is.
I don't think you can blame the fact that he can't spell out on his dyslexia.
Yeah, maybe he just didn't listen enough.
I do think bringing up boys, I think it's a bit like bringing up dogs, actually. And I think you need to.
It's much more complex.
No, not really, actually. I think,
Run you,
feed them well, sleep them well, run you well.
discipline them. That was where we made the mistake.
Yeah,
That's
that-
why our dogs are almost not house trained, and our children are barely house trained.
I think the thing about boys is the one thing I learned a long time ago is, I think it was my stepsister who said to me, she said, pick your battles. That's what I'd say to anyone. Pick your battles with boys. And so if they want to go to the supermarket in their dinosaur outfit or their pajamas, we'll let them. If they want to stand on the table with no clothes on, let them. If it's not offending anyone, it's at home and you're not, as long as it's not really dangerous or really offending anyone, pick the things you've got to get really cross about, and don't try and control boys. I think that's the thing I've learned is if you try and control every element of their lives, you won't be able to. Just be constantly frustrated. So I remember you and your brothers and your cousins would find a flower bed in the garden, and then you dig a hole and then fill it out with water and then take all your clothes off and then sort of wallow in it, a bit like sort of
Mud
hippos.
Sit in it, and then you paint yourself mud.
Yeah.
And then you would like go around putting a mud print on like trees and stuff.
Yeah. So
Wasn't just trees though, was it? It was pretty much the carpet and the walls all the way to the bathroom.
That's fair enough.
We used to
Upstairs.
see how muddy we could get the bath.
do you think you did that because you're boys, or do you think you did that if you'd had sisters, do you think you'd have done the same thing?
Yeah, I reckon they would have done the same thing.
Must have been slightly weird for you though, because we had when Billy was 18, Laurie was 12?
13.
Laurie was 13, and he was quite an early developer, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Billy was quite late.
We were all developing at the same time.
Like quadruplets.
We didn't come out of our rooms for 2 years.
Oh, God.
That's sort of.
I was completely.
I wasn't expecting you all to go
I wasn't. I didn't
It was the
get
best
it
place
until
for you,
went,
though, to be fair.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to be,
I didn't want you wandering around the garden with it in your hand.
Oh, dude. God. I don't remember any moment where I thought I can't speak to you about things or you won't speak to me. And worst case scenario, when little tiny moments where I was a bit worried about one of you guys or one of your brothers, I've normally gone to one of the other ones of you and said, look, I'm really worried about this. Can you go and talk to your brother?
Yeah.
And then you do. So any really big concerns, if I can't get it out of one of you, I'll just ask another one of you to go and find out if everything's okay.
So you just used us.
Yeah, basically. So I have used you quite a lot, actually. I've often, it's true, I have used you. And I've said, you don't have to come back to me with the answer, but I am worried about this. So can you go and talk to them and will you see if there's any problem and will you fix it?
We're making ourselves sound a lot more rational than we are in reality, though, I think.
Do you think?
Yeah, because normally we do shout at our children. We do.
Oh, yeah.
I do remember hearing you shouting like a banshee at them once and thinking, oh my dear God, the neighbours are going to hear. That's partly why I wanted to move into the middle of nowhere.
I would love it if Dad shouted. He doesn't. He goes, and the one thing that I'm really disappointed about today. So sit there. Don't you dare move. The one thing that I'm really disappointed about today, I'll tell you what, if you had a podcast when you were angry with me, I reckon it would get 0 listens.
I'm just trying to calm everybody down. There's one thing that I would say, and it's a really serious point, and I know that there'll be medics the world over saying, "Oh, you should never do that. That's really bad." Not one of your children was pushed out of our marital bed until they were ready to go.
That is true.
You know, as a baby, I think Billy had 3 days. No, he didn't. He had 3 hours in a cot at the end of the bed before he was picked up and plonked in the middle of the bed, and you'd just go.
Did we not sleep in a cot at all?
You did when you started the nights in the cot, but then if you cried, I put you in the bed. And you always got on in the morning, every morning, always, or sometime in the night, there'd be this little pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. That was lovely.
I do remember growing up, you'll try and emotionally manipulate us though sometimes.
Do you think?
As a form of like punishment. But
We didn't want everyone to hate you.
I remember when I was
listen.
like, when I couldn't forgive myself because I'd made you cry, yeah. And it was over something like really ridiculous. Like I had stolen Rafi's action figure or something like that. And you went, and I'd gone, oh my God, what have I done? And I'd given it back to Rafi and I tried to make everything like better. Yeah, and you had emotionally manipulated me into feeling really guilty. That's horrible.
There was quite a lot of
that's
fake-
not horrible.
There was quite
That's
a lot.
reasonable. I think, isn't
I
it?
don't think that's reasonable.
There was quite a lot of fake parental tears going on from both of us. Actually, I think
That's not true. You drove me to tears.
I certainly did. I remember once when you were being so naughty that I fake cried in front of you. You still didn't give a shit, really.
No, it's really
I
annoying.
did. I felt really bad when I did that. I remember that.
Well, maybe that's
remember
probably
what I
worse.
did.
That's probably really scarring,
It was you.
isn't it?
Cool, you're taking all the responsibility for how painful Billy and Rafi were.
Okay, but what did they do then?
That is quite funny though, that you pretended to cry to try and get us to listen.
It's really desperate measures.
Listen, it was either pretend to cry, or I was going to have to do something, and then you'd have been taken away and into care, and it would have been awful. So, But my dad wouldn't have pretended to cry. My dad was quite frightening, and of course, it was when your dad could find anything close to hand and hit you with it.
I do remember once you were all ganging up on me, which was, I really hated it when you ganged up on me, because you did gang up on me, and one of you wanted a piece of chicken from the fridge. I can't even remember why, but I said you couldn't have some chicken, and then you all ganged up on me, and I had some high heels from work on, and so I held the fridge shut with my back to the fridge and put my foot out to stop you because you were all running at me, and I put my foot out and my high heel went into one of your legs, and then you all rounded on me and went, "Why did you kick him?" And I went, I didn't, I put my foot out. I remember. And do you remember that?
It was me, yeah, and I remember I made the boys carry me off.
Yeah, it was awful.
Like I was like
Yeah.
in the battle, being like mortally injured.
And
they carried me off back up to my room. I said, quick, get a red Sharpie, get a red Sharpie. And I drew red on my leg like this. And I took my trousers off and came and went, nah.
Oh, it was awful.
She didn't fall for it though, annoyingly.
The truth is, I did feel terribly guilty, but you did run into my high heel. It was like...
Yeah, it's because we were attacking you. And we thought if we all charge at the same time, then you wouldn't be able to get both of us, all four of us. So you'd have to so one of us would be sacrificed, but the other people would get there.
All of this for a piece of chicken. I'm beginning to wonder whether we fed the kids at all.
It wasn't chicken. It was one of those multi-packs of Kit Kats.
Oh, was it? It was so awful. One way or another, and I'm not quite sure how it's happened, and maybe it's because your father's quite I was going to say effeminate, but that wasn't meant to be rude.
Much.
That's like...
This is my wife, Graham. Yeah.
No, I think because you're on
Whichever way you dress this up, it's not going to make me look too good.
You're definitely not going to be a
You're a
bullfighter, are you?
I could be if I wanted to. I reckon I've got the coordination.
Or a Royal Marine.
The awful thing is, I don't want to kill a bull with a sword. I think that'd be horrible.
Also, because you couldn't.
Well, even if I could, I wouldn't want to. And that doesn't make me effeminate. Bloody hell.
I think your dad is quite a feminist. And because you've been brought up by...
So you just spent the last 5 minutes trying to work out how you're going to get away with calling me effeminate. And now you're pretending that you didn't call me effeminate. You called me an effeminist.
I didn't. I called you a
What
feminist.
is effeminate? Is that just...
Effeminate is
Quite
someone
girly.
who's quite girly, which I say you all are quite.
Yeah.
Well, I think different people would think it means different things, but like you're not worried about, you're happy with feminism. You're not a like angry, domineering
men
man.
and women are equal in all ways. But
Yeah.
that's not... I could still, if I was an alpha, I could still be an alpha and feel strongly about equality for both men and women. The fact that I feel strongly about equality for men and women and I'm not really an alpha male.
Did you ever worry about us going to school being probably a bit more effeminate than other boys?
No, I'm really proud of you for it. It means that you're really confident to do whatever you want to do. You know, Billy, when he was 8, I remember on World Book Day, he went dressed as a girl and he went to the charity shop and he found a dress and high heels and a wig and he went to his all boys school and I was really proud of him because I did say, "You sure you're going to do that?" And he was like, "Yeah, I am."
And do you know what is the most telling thing in the world? Is that 4 or 5 kids the next book year did exactly the same thing.
I tell you what I think is that I think you were really lucky because
You were brought
we've talked about this before.
I think me and Billy had a better
Pre-social
childhood
media.
than Rafi and Laurie.
So do I, but I think there's a new era coming and Rafi and Laurie, your younger brothers, are just at the beginning of it, but it's got worse. And that is with the sort of saturation of digital devices and social media, which you were a little bit before, and Rafi and Laurie were at the beginning of and in the middle of it. But their age, which is 15 and 16 now, but sort of 13 plus boys, particularly, I think there is a movement towards the fact that a lot of children who don't have families who talk to them very much don't have very positive role models. And there is a rise in some quite extreme views in young boys with no one to talk to and no positive role models. And so they stick to quite negative role models and quite a hard far right leaning opinion.
8-year-olds are online scrolling through.
They're confused and they're mixed up. No one, at 8, you don't make up your mind. It's the same.
I was
it's
thinking
the
about
whole
whether I
thing.
wanted to be Batman or Superman.
Yeah, it's the whole thing about that. Like
Do you
in
know
the
what I mean?
playground, but in the playground, kids have never been racist and never will be racist. If you're in the playground, you have a black kid and a white kid. They don't
care.
They don't care. So racism is,
Parental and social conditioning,
parental and
isn't it?
social, exactly.
Are you aware of conscious of a sort of toxic alpha male influencer
I think
role?
The problem is with social media and being online is that you can group together people that have the same ideology or think the same thing. And that suddenly seems more frightening because even though they're miles and miles apart and they kind of, I think, are quite sporadic. I don't think the majority of
Nobody
people
challenges you on social media, though. That's the real problem. If you're in the pub being right wing, or even if you're being left wing,
Yeah.
somebody might come up and go, "But hang on, what makes you say that?"
Yeah.
Whereas social media is governed to try and give you the same thing and make you interact with people who have the same thought. They talk about it as an echo chamber.
Yeah,
but
completely.
there's a socialist echo chamber. Now, though, there seems to be this
a bit of
this
a far,
more acceptable, this
far right,
far-right
but that's-
echo
Do
chamber.
you notice it though?
But the problem is I see it online totally. As I was saying before, kids aren't inherently racist, but that does go, in terms of being online. I think that if kids are going out and they're seeing these, quite heavy views, especially on kind of, female emancipation and, the gender roles, and I think they're seeing these, and I think that you're very easily influenced as a kid as well.
You're a sponge.
You're a sponge, and the problem is with being online is that there are a lot of these people online. Now, I think the problem really comes from when you see this stuff online. If you don't have parents or friends that or teachers, who are catching you when you're kind of saying stuff like that and going, hold on, I want you to tell me why you think that's right. Explain to them why you think that's wrong. Because realistically, if you had a conversation with any of these people instantly, all of the people online, the reason that they work online is because they have no one challenging their views. What's interesting is that online you've got like the alpha, you've got the alpha podcast and you've got the alpha, bros or whatever. And I think that their whole idea of masculinity is looking down on people, is looking down on women, looking down on feminism, looking down on, beta males, anyone they don't consider an alpha male. And I don't think that is what masculinity is all about. I think masculinity is kind of confidence within yourself to be able to do whatever you want to do.
No matter what anyone else is doing.
Yeah.
I think that probably is.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to...
And I think it all comes from the confidence.
That's why you're not on the far right, But
if you get security from thinking other people are lower than you, then you're probably not that secure in the first place. And I'm going to be honest, the guy that you think is lower than you has never given you a second's thought. So...
Yeah. So true. There's two ways. I always think life is relative.
Yeah.
Everything in life is relative. And there's two ways of making yourself feel better. It's either trying to make everybody else worse than you or trying to make yourself better. Yeah. And it's easier to make everyone else feel worse than you, but it's more successful to just make yourself better.
Yeah. Right. After the break, we're going to be talking about the privileges of reality.
If you'd like your brand or business featured on the podcast, email us at mail@seriouslywithsarahbeeny.co.uk.
On social media, Gen Z are quite hot on not just highlighting privilege, but also categorizing it. There are obvious ones like wealth privilege, white privilege, the male privilege, but there are also some more niche types being discussed, such as pretty privilege, which is when conventionally attractive people get treated better in the world. Relationships and even in customer service.
Okay.
That's one.
Is there a smiley privilege? People who are smiley?
No, not really.
Yeah.
So work hard privilege.
No, there's a tool privilege.
Tool privilege.
What if you've got some tools?
Tool people. I'm not that tall.
Oh, tall.
Oh,
I thought you said
tall.
tool.
So did I. I was thinking anyone with a
tool,
drill
yeah.
is...
You're a bit of a tool.
I was thinking if you've got a drill and a saw,
Fine,
your
I'll say
head.
it like you from now on. Tall people privilege. Tall people are often seen as more potent and even earn more money on average.
Yeah.
We've got one more and it's called algorithm privilege. If you look, act or sound a certain way, the social media algorithms favour you.
Yeah, but that
I
is
think that's
also...
to do with pretty privilege as well.
I think it is, but the problem is the algorithms are just, all they're doing is trying to find videos that other people like.
Okay, it's pretty privileged. You know how our TikToks tend to do better when I'm in them?
Yeah.
Don't you think what everyone is cross about is the fact that we overlook our privileges?
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that we should feel grateful for, I think. And, the fact that, if you go into a hospital and you hear there's people who come into hospitals and they get really cross with the staff. And I kind of think, everyone else is paying their tax so that you can go to hospital and get treatment. We should be very grateful for that. Yeah. We should be we should try and make it better and not waste money. And that's absolutely right. And it isn't always perfect, but you're entitled to an education, to go to school. You're allowed to go to school. That is a privilege to be able to go to school. I'm grateful for my privileges, but I think we should all be grateful for our privileges. And the danger with looking at other people, looking at your life and then looking outside your life and going, they've got privilege, I haven't. That's why I am not doing what I want to do. Well, stop looking at everyone else and get on with working really hard and do what you want to do.
I think it's really good to be aware of privilege. I think it's really good to be aware of your privilege.
But not someone else's.
So yeah, look, I think that it's good in certain aspects because it's like, I think understanding your privilege and being aware of it. And so again, like we're very lucky to be in the UK. We're very lucky to do this. I think that is a massively great thing, but I don't think that's how people see privilege, especially online. I don't think people see privilege as something that they need to be aware of within themselves. I think people I don't think I've ever seen, I think if I was to take it as a whole, I would probably say that the majority of times I've read or seen privilege be used online, it's used to look at someone else. It's not used to look inwardly towards yourself.
And maybe that very often is somebody you don't actually know. It's your,
of course.
You don't
it's
know
normally
them.
something you see online. So, I'm immensely privileged and there's loads of stuff that I probably don't even think about. I've got white privilege, male privilege, all of these things that I probably don't even think about and I probably don't even recognize.
I think it is really important to be aware of your privilege. I mean, I know that we've got an amazing house. We've got an amazing upbringing. I've had possibly the easiest run that I could think of.
I think Gen Z have got a really good point. I think we should all be aware of our privileges, and everybody in this country has privileges, and some more than others. And I definitely know that I'm really aware of our privileges, and I think you guys are as well. We should all feel grateful for where we are and remember it. There's also, I think in the last couple of decades, more and more people are calling out situations where people who aren't as privileged are being sidelined. So you hear more and more men saying, no, that's not reasonable. Why are you speaking to that woman like that? And that's not okay that you pay me more than them. And this happens more and more. And I'm really proud of all those people. We have to all work together as a team to make life equal. And it's not a responsibility of those who aren't privileged to clamber for privilege. It's the responsibility as much for the privileged to put their hand down and help them up.
Yeah. One of the latest types of privilege sparking conversation online is reality privilege. This idea comes from the growing divide between online and offline life. If you have a great real world existence, a nice home, a nice job, strong friendships, you might not feel the need to escape into digital spaces. But if your offline life is boring, stressful, isolating, the internet can feel like a lifeline. The term took off when the tech investor Mark Andreessen used it to defend the metaverse, arguing that critics of virtual worlds often fail to recognize that not everyone's life is fulfilling. For many, social media, gaming, AI relationships offer more excitement and connection than their actual surroundings.
How much money is Mark Andreessen, the tech giant, making out of people being online?
Quite a lot.
Yeah, so there you are.
But I just wanted to say quickly though that I think the whole idea about escaping reality is interesting because now you have the ability to go, and if your reality isn't, if you don't feel your reality is a privilege, if you're working a really hard job and you just kind of want to escape, the internet and social media and video games or whatever it is there to help you escape.
I reckon it's the easiest but the worst escape.
I agree.
But I think people have been trying to escape from reality since the dawn of time. That's why you've had,
Books.
you've had books, you've had people have always been getting pissed. You go back to the medieval periods, people are drinking ale and mead and all of this to escape reality. You've had music to escape reality. The Vikings used to take magic mushrooms to escape reality.
You did say that this guy was a tech investor that was saying all this, but you've got to remember that we don't need to escape online because we've got an amazing house and we can go out and, the sun's out, we can go into a field, we could go swimming in a pond. We can do whatever we want. But those people that are working like dead-end, hideous jobs, and those businessmen in kind of China that they work their dead-end job and they come back and they're in this tiny little one small room. So do you think maybe we have reality privilege?
Oh, yes, I definitely think we have reality privilege.
Yeah.
I don't want to seem quite black and white about this, because I think that if I was the businessman in China, me being me, I would still rather get on my bicycle, even though it was probably my mode of transport to and from work, and I would go for a bicycle ride. You know, I love walking around looking at all different types of architecture or different types of trees. I mean, it might make me quite weird and boring, but you know,
That is true.
I find reality
You would do that.
in all its guises generally more exciting than, you know, spending hours and hours on TikTok. You know, but I go to I'll watch a film. You know, I'm not completely void of wanting to go and escape, you know, and I escape in all sorts of different ways and probably spend a bit too much time online. I like reading news because I'm now 51 years old. You know, I do all of that sort of thing online, but I couldn't just do that.
Okay, that is fair. But so you've been, I mean, you got brought up without social media. It takes more for me to want to go outside than it takes for one of you two to want to go outside. Would you agree with that? Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, because they design it to be addictive.
they design it to be addictive.
But I don't want them to control
if
me.
I didn't have this amazing outside garden and fields of farm, I would be, I don't think I would look outside and go, oh, I want to go on a walk, because it would just be.
No, that's
walking
because
down
you've got this.
streets.
But that's the same as having sweets. If you've got a big bowl of sweets and you've got some broccoli, you eat the sweets.
But you
will feel rubbish afterwards. But if you eat the broccoli, you'll feel better. It's deferred gratification. I think we should be focusing on helping to make real life better for people rather than thinking their life isn't great, so we'll make an online world that's better. I mean, community is what, not being part of a real community is problematic. I mean, an online community is not the same as a real community. And a real community can be anything from being part of your local religious, you know, the local church, or whether you go and volunteer at the local hospital, or if you're part of a local running club. You know, there is a community in real life. You can have an online running club that you go to where you don't even know those people, or you can actually go and meet people. Go to a dog walking club, or like, you know, age concerned, go to some, you know, people are elderly and lonely, go and see them. That's real life. There is no replacement for human beings being with, touching, and surrounding themselves with other human beings. There is nothing that is the same.
You could live on a beautiful farm in a beautiful house and be fucking miserable. You could. And likewise, you could be a businessman in China, you know, and, you know, be working really hard, long hours, and be living in a, you know, in a tiny flat, miles and miles up in the air, and you could just be really happy.
Yeah.
So
happiness comes from your head.
Reality is kind of what you make it.
Do you think it's possible to be happy if you don't communicate with other human beings? And do you think it's possible to be unhappy if you do communicate with other human
Tarzan
beings?
was happy.
What?
Tarzan was happy.
But he communicated with animals.
He was happy when he found Jane, though, wasn't he?
He
was
said
happier.
human being.
He was happier when he.
Okay, and also, by the way, he didn't actually exist.
Do you think Tarzan was a virgin when he met Jane?
Oh, right. Can we just move on? God.
Well, that'd be pretty messed up, wouldn't it?
I was just putting a question out there to the masses.
I really hope he was.
The baboons. I think this tech investor calling reality a privilege, and that he's going to equal it up by creating a digital platform which will make him millions of pounds. I'm not being a cynic, but I'm kind of thinking there's one big winner from this, and that is him. The other thing I would say is I think that that there's a moment in time where the virtual world will eventually serve humans, and at the moment it doesn't serve humans, it serves some rich people who made it. We are really fortunate. We have amazing lives. We live in a beautiful house, and dare I say, even though sometimes you're annoying, I have got an amazing family. And we do have reality privilege in so many ways. But I also do think reality is what you make it. After the break, we're going to take a listener question. In the break, it seems that we were joined by Maple and Piccolo, who seem to be, these are our dogs.
They went to their favourite parent.
They both sitting on Graham's lap. Anyway, so we're going to get on with a quick listener question. And this quick listener question is, hi, Sarah and family. How have you taught the boys to value money, and are they good with their money now? I think pocket money is really hard because I've struggled for years with whether you should have pocket money and how much pocket money, because I sort of feel in my head that you should get like maybe 5p a week or something. But then I realised to actually buy a Mars bar that would take a year or something like that. I'm like, it's very hard, pocket money.
Actually,
But inflation.
You've never done the pocket money thing.
No, I've never done the pocket money thing.
But you've always been very clear about whether something's affordable or whether it's not affordable. Like, I wouldn't go anywhere and buy something stupid ever.
No, I do know that. And somehow, I don't know if I've got it, I don't think we've got it perfect, because every now and then I'd say to Dad, right, I think they should have an allowance. And then he'd go, okay. And then the logistics of an allowance are so complicated, because you go, well, are they going to buy their own school books and things, or are we going to buy what covers, does the allowance cover or not? But instead I did it a very different way. Well, not very different, basically a lazier way, which was to say, well, we can't afford that, you're not having it. And then if you asked for money, I'd go, what's it for? And if it seemed like it was reasonable, then I'd give you the money. If it didn't, I wouldn't. That's really bad.
I think I'm pretty financially responsible, except when it comes to Jaeger bombs.
Yeah, but that's normally maybe at the end of an evening. I have to say, I've never felt that you've taken the mickey out of money.
How did you make us financially like responsible and fairly financially aware? I think you just spoke to us about money from like a really young age. I think that's what it was. You were never.
It was slightly weird though, because we have always been, ever since, I don't know, we've been 30, we've always been pretty financially stable. But it's very up and down, our career, because we're self-employed, because mum especially was self-employed. When she was doing, when she had 3 shows, it was a great year. When she had no shows, we had to look and go, okay, so how are we going to get through this? So
even
it's
before,
been a bit precarious financially, our life in some ways.
Even before that, so before I did telly, we were developing property, and then it was a very much feast and famine. So it would be fine, and then we'd have loads of projects on, and then you get to the end where you've got no cash, but lots of projects, and you need to sell them to get some cash. So we've had this. This has been, since we met, it's been like some money and then no money.
10 years, weren't you?
Yeah.
Before you ever touched TV.
Yeah.
We have pretty inexpensive tastes as well.
Oh, that is also true.
Apart from the one really expensive thing in our lives, which is the house and the farm.
And children.
We drive
You like going out to
rotten
supper.
second-hand cars. We've never had a new car in our life. We drive a Honda FRV, and I think it was $2,500.
That is true.
That's the way that we choose our life.
Don't mock that car.
I'm not mocking the car. It was our
wonderful
choice of car.
It's the best
Wonderful
car in the
car.
world because
Yeah.
it has 3 seats in the front.
So
you
good.
can ride up.
Don't tell everyone, because they'll all buy the second-hand ones and won't be any second-hand ones left.
Look, they pitched it to us. They said, "Look, Billy, Charlie, it's got 3 seats in the front. You can drive with your girl, with 2 girls in the front. How cool would that be?"
I did not pitch it into you as
I'm
that.
going to give you the mute dog.
Do you want
and
to
carry on saying stupid
know
things.
how that car actually works? You sit quite cramped in the middle, with Dad telling you to move your legs so he can do the gears, or Mum telling you to move your legs. So you sit quite cramped in between your parents.
Yeah.
It's lovely. It's so snuggly.
I love the car.
But I do think it is quite an important lesson in life, though, especially to give to your kids. Don't have really expensive tastes, because life is expensive enough. Don't need to drive a Ferrari. Don't need to drive a.
Well, it's fine. I guess if you've got plenty of, I
Don't
suppose.
drink champagne. Drink beer.
I think I probably haven't used pocket money well enough in terms of getting you to do chores. That would have been, we should have done that. We should, although my brother always said, which I sort of think is true, is that you should be helping because you live there, not because you're paid. So you shouldn't be paid to load the dishwasher because it's the dishwasher that in the home you live in. So you should help.
One thing that I think has sort of helped us quite a lot with understanding the concept of money is that, so we did the TV show with you and we've been in a band with Dad and we're doing the podcasts with both of you. I mean, we've sort of been involved in this kind of family business. I don't know whether you can call it that, but it's kind of this family business thing. And if the family business goes badly, then we have to cut down. And we're all aware of the fact that we have less money.
Yeah.
Because we're on the inside of how much money we're getting and what's happening. So, because you're very open with us. And then we work it out in the tougher times. And then when we've got more money, we know that we could go out to dinner or do something really nice. But I think being filled in about the amount of money that your parents have and communicating about it is probably what's done it. It's not being taught that if you trim these hedges, you get £10. You always trusted us with your credit card.
Yes.
Throughout, from the age of 4 to 19. And I have never, ever once overstepped the mark.
No.
But
if I trust you more than, I trust you guys more than anyone in the world, why would I not trust you with my money as well?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, we were children, so it could have been like...
No, but I did tell you about it. I didn't just give you, I said, oh, this is what happens and this is how it works. I explained to you how a credit card works and then trusted you. I didn't just go, oh, I don't know what this is. I explained, if I explain it all to you and then logically explain it to you, then I trust you to listen.
I do remember once being on holiday. I'm not sure that I should admit this. I do remember once being on holiday. It was very nice. We were having a really nice time. We all went skiing together. And the end of the holiday, they brought the bar bill. And the bar bill was so eye-wateringly enormous. And I looked at it, and I know that we'd been on holiday and we were paying for our fair share of booze that we'd bought at the bar. But I looked down and it was all hot chocolates and, waffles and all the things that the kids have got. And they literally had spent more on hot chocolates and waffles than we had on what was already some pretty expensive booze. And we were not really holding back.
Okay, do you know why? Do you know why that is?
Yeah, because you were buying it for all your mates as well.
No, because Mum didn't explain that when you said, please, can I get a waffle? And then they asked for your room number. Yeah. And you go, oh, that's so easy. All I have to do is say I'm 92. And then they give me a free waffle. So but you didn't explain that it goes back onto your credit card when we were younger.
Do you know what? That is true, actually. And that is fair.
I thought we were getting the same as a minibar. I thought that was just, you could just take.
Oh, I thought minibar was the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I did the first hotel I went to, and
I remember once.
It's a horrible shock.
I remember once we were in the minibar. There was a minibar in the hotel, and I think me and Char and all the boys were staying there, and we had to drink everything because otherwise it was silly not to. We weren't making the most of it.
Yeah, I do remember that hotel.
That was in Cornwall, wasn't it?
I think
I was so cross.
I drank four of the Cokes, but in the small bottles. I made everyone have 4, and then there were 4 lemonades, and I made everyone have 4.
Was I very cross?
Yeah. You were pretty cross.
Yeah, I was very cross.
But we didn't know.
No, and
it just came with the hotel.
Yeah, these are things that you should remember to tell your children if you go to a hotel and they're in the hotel room and you're going downstairs for a drink. You need to say, by the way, don't touch anything in the minibar.
Being in a band has made us appreciate money as well, I think. There's a lot of costs and not a lot of
income.
Well, look, and it's very hard to balance it.
So say the tour, for example, we're playing, say we're playing a venue in Birmingham and it's
£10 a ticket. We still have to pay the venue for the venue hire. We need to pay for security. We need to pay for bar staff. We need to pay for getting up there. So we need to pay for fuel for getting up there in a van, which is, pretty heavy on that. And then we also need to pay to stay a night in Birmingham because we can't leave and drive all the way back, especially if we're trying to go up to Manchester and then Newcastle the next day. So we need to stay there. And all of those costs is expensive. And especially even when we try to keep the tickets as low as possible. So we keep them at 10 quid. And even if you're selling, 800 tickets to a venue, it's still quite, it's hard to make a profit on that. So I think that does make you quite financially, responsible because you know that you can't just go out and go, oh wow, that's so amazing. I've made a certain amount of money when actually that's not the case. When you look at the costs of it as well, it's
we've actually got enough to get a Big Mac at the end of it all.
Yeah.
To share.
Whilst everyone's not in a band, being in a kind of business, it teaches you what comes in and what goes out. And I think that's really helpful for the value of money as well.
I think there's one thing that really teaches you the value of money, and that is having a job. Your job is being in a band. So that's kind of taught you all the finances to do with that. But whatever it is, if you're kind of first job working in a bar or if you're working in Sainsbury's, you get your money and if you're living at home, you go home and you pay rent to your parents, and you end up with a very limited amount of money to go and do what you want to do. Yeah. And that's kind of real life.
That pint at the pub, that cold one, tastes unbelievably good, doesn't it?
There is nothing more exciting than spending money that you earn yourself.
In today's episode, we talked about raising boys and the challenges they face growing up. 2 UK organisations that offer support in this area are Boys in Mind, helping boys and young men to talk openly about mental health, break stigma and prevent suicide. You can find out more at boysinmind.co.uk. Future Men is an organisation that focuses on guiding boys and young men through life's challenges, promoting resilience, empathy and positive masculinity. You can visit their website at futuremen.org for more information. And as always, you can find those websites in our show notes. Thank you very much for listening, everybody, or watching. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
If you'd like to submit a topic for us to discuss, please email us. The address is mail@seriouslywithsarahbeeny.co.uk. Seriously was created by me, your host, Sarah Beeny, and our producer, Jonathan Profaska. The show is recorded and edited by Jonathan Profaska and Christian Kay.